Last week, Abuna David finished up the book of 2 Corinthians. And one of the things he said at the end, right before we left, he said, next week is going to be a surprise. And we all joked because we said, it's a surprise to him, it's a surprise to me, it's a surprise to everybody. Which book we're going to do, who's going to give it. Well, the surprise got solved yesterday. So Abuna let me know, and I asked for a suggestion for which book, and he said that we haven't done the Old Testament in a while. So I figured let's delve into the Old Testament and do a book that is a different style. So the past few books we've been doing were letters by St. Paul. It was, I think, 1 Corinthians, and then Hebrews, and then 2 Corinthians. So it's been a and Romans before that, yeah. So it's all these.
Where are you going? What are you guys doing? We have a meeting.
No. You have to go outside. Okay.
I'll be outside.
So Romans, Hebrews, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. So these are all letters, and these letters are given to the church and to us as a breakdown of the faith. And it was really great to see how Abuna broke it down, and each verse and each anything that St. Paul said, it triggered a lot of questions for us, and it triggered self-examination. Even though St. Paul said it, it also, there's verses also that made us think outside the box a little bit. We're going to think outside the box, but in a different way. We're going to be doing the book of Esther. So if whoever doesn't have a Bible, we can pass around the Bibles. Thank you. So the book of Esther is in the Old Testament. It's located right after the book of Nehemiah, before the book of Job. And it's not a huge book. And it's really interesting because it takes a different approach. It's a very different style of book. First, something you may notice is that the name. A lot of the Old Testament books are written by the name of the writer. In this case, Esther is not the writer. We'll talk about who the writer is later. But Esther is not the writer. It's about Esther. So but if you look at Nehemiah was written by Nehemiah. Obadiah was written by Obadiah. All these other prophets, Isaiah was written by Isaiah, Jeremiah. So this is a little different. Esther was written by her uncle, which we'll get into that. His name is Mordecai. He's the one who wrote this book. Now, something else that's interesting about this book. We said the other books we studied were letters. This is a story. And not just any type of story. I tried to look up to see if they have any movies on this. Because this would be, of course there are, it has to be. No, but I'm not even talking about movies. You know how some movies are exact explanation, like The Passion of the Christ or something. I wonder if they have modern. Oh, they do, yeah. See, because this is like a Hollywood film. It's a very very interesting story, and it kind of.
One night with a king.
Oh.
One night with a king.
And it's about the story of Esther? Yeah. I will definitely take a look at it during this series.
VeggieTales.
Oh, VeggieTales. Yeah. So this book is a little different. This book is a story, and it's a very action-packed, and we're going to take this from a different approach. So while we're reading this, before it was each verse was very deep. St. Paul is writing these verses, and we have to sit there and really, it's really heavy stuff, so we have to break it down and question it and everything. Here, we just need to understand the whole story, and then we can see there's different lessons that we can learn through this book. I just want to give a little bit of an intro before we get into it. I'll probably repeat this again throughout, but another thing that's interesting, the time period. Sometimes in the Old Testament, books are intertwined. So you'll see, for example, some historians say that Job, the book of Job, was written actually within Genesis. So like there's some Bibles that people sell that are the Bible in chronological order. So it's for people who want to just kind of read through the Bible, but in order of how it was written and the time period and all this stuff. So they'll have like Genesis 1 through 20, and then Job, and then Genesis 30, like it's very interesting. Yeah. Esther is intertwined with Ezra and Nehemiah. So it's that around that same time period. Okay? Now, these are all like some facts about the story of Esther. This is the kicker right here. It's the only book in the Bible that does not mention God at all. Does not mention God. You're going to be reading this, and it's going to be kind of like, you're going to have to remind yourself that you're reading the Bible. Because it's very different than everything else. It's very, very different. And that's why I'm excited to just kind of delve into it and kind of live it for the next, for the rest of the book, the 10 chapters or so. So, I want to focus on main characters. Who are the main characters here? There's first person we're going to talk about is a man by the name of Ahasuerus. He's a king. And depending on, we're doing Esther, the book of Esther in the Old Testament. So, no problem. I don't know if each Bible sometimes writes his name differently. Can you spell? It's in the first verse.
Page 483.
How is it spelled? Okay. So in some
Page number?
what page number?
483.
483.
The book of Esther.
Yeah. So I was just saying the book of Esther is very different, and it doesn't have the name of God in it at all, but God is very, very, very present in this book. And it's nice to see the two different styles. Like we just finished a book in the New Testament. We just finished a book of every word St. Paul is talking about God and our relationship to God. We're doing the book of Esther. And now we're reading a book that God's not mentioned one time. So, but does that mean God's not there? Of course not. Of course He is. He's always there. But sometimes, just like in our lives, we don't see Him. We don't realize He's there, but He is. And a lot of people actually call the book of Esther the invisible hand of God. Invisible hand of God. Because you see God working behind the scenes. He's a director of this movie. Like we said, this is kind of like a movie. It's kind of like a story. He's behind the scenes. But just like if you are watching a movie, you can see the message that the director's trying to give. You could see the message behind the writer in any story. So this is the same thing here. So it's the king, the first character we want to discuss. The king's name is Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus. And it's in some places he's spelled Xerxes. So it's a different name. The reason why it's a different name is because sometimes it's the Hebrew translation, sometimes it's the Greek translation of the Hebrew and stuff like that. He was a very powerful guy, similar to like Nebuchadnezzar. Very, very, very powerful king in the Old Testament. Not a great guy. So that's something to keep in mind. And the style of his rule was very different. So he's the first character. And we'll get into the other characters, but I wanted to talk about him first. And I know it's a difficult name, and we'll be reading his name a lot, but it's Ahasuerus. Okay? So there might be some tough names, but just do the best you can, and we'll get through it.
Sounds like Ahasuerus.
Yeah, like
In Arabic.
what's that? Oh, it's the same?
In English, but
It's the same name in
Ahasuerus.
Arabic.
Oh,
Ahasuerus.
Ahasuerus. Okay, so it's the same. So, but if you look at another translation, there's X's everywhere. It's like
Right.
Xerxes, or it's
The
very
Old-
complicated.
The Old New Testament is written the other way.
Exactly.
Because I was giving that lesson before and I didn't.
The Septuagint. It's actually like if you look at the Orthodox Study Bible, it's actually written differently, and it's very interesting that the book of Esther, they say it was actually 16 chapters long, but they only were able to find 10. And the Deuteronomical books actually have a little piece of Esther as well.
So the Coptic reader has.
You'll find a different, you'll find even the first, when we start reading, the first verse, it won't be here. So you'll notice, go to like a little further down.
I'm just saying the Coptic reader has 16 chapters.
Yes.
Because it has both.
Yes. The Coptic reader is based on the Orthodox Study Bible. It's the Septuagint version. But we're going to use the New King James just so we're all on the same page. All right. So let's start. If somebody can read from 1 to 8. And if we can read it twice like Abuna likes to do. Oh.
Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this was the Ahasuerus who reigned over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. In those days when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the citadel, that was in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast for all his officials and servants, the powers of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendor of his excellent majesty for many days, 180 days in all. And when these days were completed, the king made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in Shushan the citadel, from great to small, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white and blue linen curtains fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple and silver rods, and marble pillars. And the couches were of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of alabaster, turquoise and white and black marble. And they served drinks in golden vessels, each vessel being different from the other, with royal wine in abundance, according to the generosity of the king. In accordance with the law, the drinking was not compulsory, for so the king had ordered all the officers of his household that they should do according to each man's pleasure.
Okay. So we're setting the scene here. What's going on? This king, we said he's very, very powerful. Let's read it one more time, and let's paint the scene. We're going to read this like a movie. We're going to read this like a story. So let's paint the scene. So if you can read it again, Christine.
Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this was the Ahasuerus who reigned over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. In those days when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the citadel, that in the 3rd year of his reign he made a feast for all his officials and servants, the powers of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendor of his excellent majesty for many days, 180 days in all. And when these days were completed, the king made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in Shushan the citadel, from great to small, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white and blue linen curtains fastened with cords of fine linen, and purple on silver rods and marble pillars. and the couches were of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of alabaster, turquoise and white and black marble. And they served drinks in golden vessels, each vessel being different from the other, with royal wine in abundance, according to the generosity of the king. In accordance with the law, the drinking was not compulsory, for so the king had ordered all the officers of his household that they should do according to each man's pleasure.
Okay. This king, we're gonna see his, like, like when you're watching a movie, the character build-up. We're gonna see what this king is about without knowing any information about him. We just know he was a ruler, and he had over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. So if you look at a map now, that's crazy. That's the amount of places he owned was huge. Now, what's interesting is what he did. So when you have a lot of things, okay, some people keep it to themselves. Some people we're doing the book of Esther. How are you? So when they having this, he's now starting this huge party. What's the purpose of this party?
Show off.
To show off. That's all it is. That's to say, hey, look at me, I'm the man. That's what he's doing. Now, sometimes we attend parties, we throw parties, right? And it's to celebrate something. He's only celebrating himself. So it shows us the type of person he is. Okay? How long was this party? Huh?
7 days.
No? 6 months. 180 days. A 6-month party. Okay? So sometimes we feel like a 4-hour party, a 5-hour party is too long. This is a 6-month party. And he invited everybody. And like we said, the purpose of the party was, hey, look what I got. Look what I got. And not only did he have this party, what do you think he was doing at this party? Drinking, showing off. It says here, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendor of his excellent majesty for many days, 180 days in all. Now, after a 6-month party,
And another one.
what would you do after a 6-month party? You'd probably rest, sleep for another 6 months, right? First thing he does,
Feasting for 7 days.
another feast, another party.
It's party life.
Yeah, this is the party life. What's interesting is, this is how the devil works. And the king here symbolizes the devil. The devil it never is too much for the devil. Like, there's never too much drinking, never too much sin, never too much boasting, never too much pride. The devil's never going to be like, no, that's enough pride. That's enough sin. And when he gets you for a long period of time. When you're living in sin, like, I don't think he planned for the party to be 180 days. I think it just started. It just happened to end after 180 days. Maybe something ran out. Maybe and then he's like, wait a second. Why'd we stop? Another 7 days. And that's what the devil does. And if you look at how he's acting, how he's reacting to his kingdom, that's what the devil does with us. He puts us in a... Sin is... How do we look at sin? How is sin talked about by the devil? Or how is it talked about in the media, in society? pleasurable. What else? Fun.
Rest, like identification.
Yeah, like it's encouraged. Sin is encouraged. Sin is exposed. Like you won't find a billboard that says, be humble, or any like the virtues, or a commercial that's going to be talking about, a righteous life.
Life is short, enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. That's all the mottos. Life is short, enjoy it. YOLO, exactly, right? You only live once. That's that. Once that came out, everybody lived it. Forget said it. Lived it. It's like, oh, who cares? Because you only live once. This king is living a YOLO life. This king is living a life where he's saying, I'm the man. I got everything in front of me. Nothing else matters. Did he earn this stuff? Yeah. There's no question. He's the king. He's very powerful. 127 provinces, and we said, look at the distance between one place and India and Ethiopia. That's a huge. He owned like half the world. Right? Yeah. He was the king of Persia. Yeah, that whole area. That whole area was Persia. So he owned it, and he's very powerful. The devil is very powerful too. And I feel like sometimes we tend to write him off. There's a middle ground. Sometimes we're extreme in both directions. Sometimes we act like there's no such thing as the devil. And sometimes we act like the devil is more powerful than God. And it's the way we act. Because sometimes we don't realize the devil is not he's very intelligent. Let's just say that. Because he doesn't reveal himself. Like imagine if all you saw on earth was scary images of the devil. That wouldn't be appealing. But sin is appealing through other things. Through the media, through like anything, through any type of outlet that we're exposed to. Now, what's interesting is, who was this feast for?
The first one or the second?
So let's do one at a time. So verse 3 says that in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast for all his officials and servants. The powers of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him. It's a staff party. It's like a staff Christmas party that lasts 6 months. He's getting all his boys. He's getting everybody, all the servants, all the officials, all the rulers, all the governors, all the mayors, everybody come. 6 months. Now, when these days were completed, verse 5, the king made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in Shushan the citadel, from great to small, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. Now, this one is more for who? This is general. This is a general public. Now he said, okay, I'm done with these guys. 6 months of partying with these officials. Now I'm going to open it up. Same way the devil does it. The devil doesn't just focus on the leaders. He starts with the leaders.
You need more time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. He needs 6 months with the leaders. He needs to mess with them. And because a leader has what? A strong personality. A leader he's more goal oriented. A leader is more powerful. Even these guys, these officials. The devil messes with leaders. Never ever feel like we are completely clear of the devil. That's the worst thing the devil could actually trick us into believing. Like, no. You go to church. You come to the Bible study. You're fine. You're in God's path now. Like, it's fine. That's how the devil talks to us. That's how the devil messes with us. Then he's like, you know what? I'm done with these guys. I'm going to get everybody else. The 7 days were for all the people present in Shushan, the citadel, from the great to small, in the court of the garden of the king's place. Now, why those people? Why the general? The king, everybody knew the king was powerful. But the king wanted to show the people how powerful he is. Okay? This wasn't just any regular party. Even a 7-day party is a little bit much, right? Like, after 180 days, drinking. Like, at this point, I mean, like, you're drinking, you're partying for 6 months, and then you take, there's no even break. It doesn't even say there's a break. Like, so 187 days of drinking, partying, everything, right? Let's see what was at this party. There were white and blue linen curtains, silver rods, marble pillars. The couches were of gold. The silver on the mosaic pavement of alabaster, turquoise, and white and black marble. Here's the kicker here. They served drinks in golden vessels, each vessel being different from the other, with royal wine in abundance, according to the generosity of the king. How generous is this king? That everybody's coming, and you know, like when you throw a party or something, right? You get plastic cups for everybody. You get plastic cups for everybody, or you use, like, say it's like a very important party, like this is like an engagement or a wedding, or if everybody gets the same nice glass cup. Here, everybody got a different golden vessel, customized. It's like these are favors now, right? So everybody got their own thing, and this is the funniest part. According to the generosity of the king. Sometimes we look around in the world and we say, "These are people who aren't believers." We see how successful they are. And we say, how come, God? How could you allow this to happen? How come a person who doesn't know you, a person who doesn't believe in you, a person who actually denies you, how come he's so successful? Because the devil is generous. The devil is generous. The devil will help your greed. So, you want more money? Just, you keep working in my way, you still live in my direction, you'll get more money. The thing is, if we are living in sin, the devil will supply. He'll provide. He'll never keep you hungry. Because then you'll just leave. You'll question and you'll leave. So if you're living in sin, the sin will keep getting juicier. The money will keep coming in. The lifestyle will keep getting better. All of that will continue. The opposite is also true with Christ. The closer we get to Christ, the closer we get to God, His righteousness will constantly be abundant. It'll never run out. Can the water run out in the ocean? Can we ever be in the ocean and be dry? Never. It will never happen. Same thing. It works both ways, with the devil and with God. It's just a matter of what pleasures do we want? What gifts do we want? Do we want gifts of righteousness, fruit of the Spirit? Or do we want the life of sin? something very interesting that I'll never forget. I want to say 8th grade English teacher told us something, and she's not like a Christian or anything like that, but it was like we were reading, I forgot what we were reading, but we were reading something, and she always liked to go to the origin of the word. And we read something, and it's like something happens. And she stopped. And then the next line over was talking about being happy. She goes, do you know where happy comes from? I'm like, no. She goes, it's the same root as the word happen or happening. When you think of the word happen, it's done. It's a short period of time. Like my birthday happened. This event happened. Liturgy happened this morning. In an hour, we're going to say this meeting, the Bible study happened. Right? Happiness is the same thing. Happiness is short-lived. Happiness is temporary. Joy is everlasting. Joy is eternal. Now, the devil, what does he work with? What are his tools? Happiness. Because it's true, we do feel happy. Huh?
Happy hour.
Yeah, exactly. Happy hour. We get like everything is just happy. You never see people living in sin and they're frowning. They're always like a commercial. You can find people like smiling or whatever. Like you see ads for anything negative. Everybody looks great. Everybody's so happy. But that happiness for any sin, think of any sin, is very temporary. It's very temporary. Now she was saying joy is everlasting. A few years later, I heard a similar thing, but now somebody actually broke down joy. And they were saying a good way to remember how to be joyous is break it up into an acronym. You might have heard this before. Jesus first, others second, yourself last. Jesus first, others second, yourself last. Huh?
That's not appealing to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that again, it's made up, it's man-made, but joy itself is not man-made. And the true, I like it because it keeps my mind like, I can't get joy from anything else. I can't get joy from living in the of the world. We live in the world, but we're not of the world, like St. Paul says. So let's continue back. Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
So are you saying that we shouldn't pursue happiness as Christians?
We pursue joy, but that comes like. Does that mean if we're with God that we're not going to get, we're not going to have a car, we're not going to have a house, we're not going to have, stuff that makes people happy, quote unquote? Of course not. If we're walking with God, it says in the Gospel of St. Matthew, it says, seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all things shall be added. All things. And right before that, he was talking about how we need, what are we going to wear, what are we going to eat, what are we going to drink. Like, it's not a matter of if you choose God, you forget about the world as a whole. No, you forget about the lifestyle of the world, but you still take care of your needs, and the thing is, our feeling of happiness won't really be just this temporal feeling. It's going to be very eternal. So that's the goal. Our goal is to be an eternal righteousness, eternal joy, rather than just a temporary happiness.
Yeah, I remember hearing, it was very similar to that. I remember hearing a sermon, and I think it was explained like the enemy wants you to put your happiness in your car or in your grades, in your relationships, so that when you lose or you get a bad grade, your joy goes with it. Or if something happens to the car, your joy goes with it. Or the relationship goes bad and you're just down. But if you put your joy in Christ, it's like your joy is somewhere that's untouchable to the enemy, and he doesn't know how to mess you up because it doesn't matter what else is going on.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening is not affecting you.
Like the story of Job. He lost everything, but his connection with God allowed him to be joyous, even to the end. Even when he was telling people, like, hey guys, like, I'm fine. You know? And then God provided for him. So God's not going to not provide for us. But it's which direction are we going in? And here, it's funny because it's the generosity of the king. The word generous, we always tend to think of it as a positive word. Is he being positive? He's just providing. But what is he providing? It's just emptiness. 6 months of drinking and just sin, right? And in accordance with the law, the drinking was not compulsory. For so the king had ordered all the officers of his household that they should do according to each man's pleasure. So it wasn't just drinking. Do whatever you want. It was a house of sin. Do whatever you want. This is your party. Now comes another character. So far we just have the king, Ahasuerus, and now we have another character. If somebody can start us off by reading from 9 to 12. Just those 3 verses. Those 4 verses, yeah. Can somebody read?
Queen Vashti also made a feast for the women in the royal palace which belonged to King
Ahasuerus.
On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with the wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bitha.
Yeah, just ignore him.
Abgatha, Zathar, and Carcass, 7 eunuchs who served in the presence of King Ahasuerus to bring Queen Vashti before the king, wearing her royal crown in order to show her beauty to the people and the officials, for she was beautiful to behold. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command brought by his eunuchs. Therefore the king was furious, and his anger burned within him.
Okay. So, not only were the guys having a party, his queen, his wife, she did the same. She decided, you know what? How come the guys get a party? I'm going to throw a party for the girls. Right? Yeah. Just an all-women's party, right? And it was in the royal palace. It was a great party. Right? Now, on the 7th day, the king was merry with wine. I'm sure he was
under the radar.
Yeah, I'm sure he was merry with wine before, but we're just knowing right now.
He reaches a peak.
Yeah, he's done. He's like
A little tipsy.
Yeah, he's a little bit more than a little tipsy, right? And he commanded his 7 eunuchs. A eunuch was one of the people that was like his right hand man, right? What was their command? Their command was to bring the Queen Vashti, to appear to the king, not just to the king, but
To his guests.
to the guests. And it says here, but it says, wearing her royal crown in order to show her beauty to the people and officials, for she was beautiful to behold. Okay. Something interesting. Scholars say that it wasn't just her coming in wearing the crown. It was her wearing nothing but the crown. That was the command. So it wasn't like hey, come say hi to my friends. It was come the same way he did for 6 months, showing off his treasures, showing off his kingdom. He wants to show off what else he has. He was objectifying her. he was treating her like one of his prizes as well. As, hey, check out this. Like, check out my new car, and check out my wife, and this and that. And how did she take it? She refused. This shows something very interesting. Sometimes the devil will mess with us and will put stuff down and will put us in this way. And this shows that we could refuse. We're able to refuse. When you're walking in sin and you're living in sin, we have to remember that he's not in control. The devil is not in control. He's in control of the things he can control, but he can't control people.
Tempting all the time.
Exactly. So he put it in the heart of King Ahasuerus. Hey, you know what would be great? Just like you're showing off everything else, come show your wife. But we see in Queen Vashti that there is some dignity. There's a line that can't be crossed. There's a line that cannot be crossed. Okay? So, but Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment brought to by his eunuchs. Therefore the king was furious, and his anger burned within him. Then the king said to the wise men who understood the times, for this was the king's manner toward all who knew the law and justice, those closest to him being Karshina, Shithar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsina, and Mumikin, and the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who had access to the king's presence and who ranked highest in the kingdom. What shall we do to Queen Vashti according to the law, because she did not obey the command of King Ahasuerus brought to her by the eunuchs? And Memucan answered before the king and princes, Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes and all the people who are in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. They're egging him on.
Yeah.
They're egging him on.
Something about this.
They're like, how could, oh my goodness. The king of half the world made a command, not to any stranger, but to his wife, the queen. And she refused? What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this?
Yeah, you can't let that one go.
You can't let that one go. And then you hear the on the back end, you hear like the nudging.
Yeah.
You see the nudging from
the wise men.
I wouldn't.
Council.
Yeah, his council, his group, right?
Circle.
Yeah, and so let's read from 17 to 20.
Yeah. This also shows that she's been, according to the book of God, he told Eve she must obey her husband. Remember when she went against him?
So that
same thing happening again.
So let me ask a question. Let's say somebody close to you tells you to do something against
your will.
Forget your will. Against God's will. What do? But they're very close to you. In this case, it's a husband and wife.
That's their business.
Huh?
That's their business.
That's their business. But what would you do if somebody very, very close to you
nudges you?
Not nudges, commands you. Tells you to do something.
Yeah.
But it's against God's will. How would we respond? It's very a tough situation, because you think about, like, let's say like a parent tells us, like our own parent tells us, don't do this, do this. You go to church a lot. Try something else. Do something else.
Mix it up.
Stay home and study. It could be something that it's not a bad thing. But it's bad when it goes against God's will. So yeah, like the Adam and Eve thing, yeah, and we say this in the Bible. The husband and the wife, yeah.
Together, maybe together.
Eve to listen to Adam.
He didn't command Eve to listen to Adam.
First,
Yeah.
they are not believers. They are not Jewish.
Exactly.
Yeah. Third, he requests for her unmoral Christian.
Exactly. And that's the key right there. The immoral part. We say in the wedding, if you attend a wedding, you read we read what St. Paul says about how a wife should obey her husband, and a husband shall obey the wife.
Protect her.
And protect her, and all these things. So like these are major things that God is commanding of like a couple. But I'm not just talking about a relationship of a spouse. I'm talking about any relationship that you're like your closest friends, and they tell you to do something that doesn't fit in God's plan or God's will. How do we respond?
I think it's hard. I think being honest, I think you contemplate it.
I agree 100%.
You try to think, okay, maybe I am too far this way.
Exactly.
I should balance out. You do.
Yeah. And you think about this queen right now. And this is her life. She's the queen of this horrible guy. It's not like she's a saint somewhere. You know, like she's still like living this life. Like she's in this environment. She's in this. It's not like I said. The guys are having the party. She's like, we're gonna have a girls' party, girls' night out for a week as well. So it's the same idea. So it's not like she's going in the right path. But what it's a lesson for us to know. We need our own moral compass. We need our own
conscience.
Yeah, we have to know what's right and what's wrong, because if we don't, we're gonna get swayed.
Right.
We're gonna get pushed. We're gonna get told to. We're gonna get encouraged.
Right.
And if we don't know what's right and what's wrong, if I don't know that doing a certain sin is wrong, I just don't know. No one told me. I don't know that. Then it's gonna be easy for me to keep doing it.
Yeah. This it seems like she was hurt by the way she was treated.
Yeah.
And a situation came up to where he was in front of his friends and his dignity and kingsmanship was in line.
Absolutely.
And she may be wrong to make an issue right in front of his friends. Goes,
absolutely.
That's wrong. I'm going to hurt him.
Absolutely.
It's going to hurt. He hurt me. I'm going to hurt him back.
And it did hurt him. And it did hurt him. It says in the end of verse 12, the king was furious and his anger burned within him.
There it is.
He was embarrassed. He was embarrassed. He has all his friends over, and he got embarrassed by this.
Yeah. He always helped me. What would I do without
Well, I was just going to say too, like
Yes, sir. Yes,
he
sir.
was. This is after it says 7 days of drinking, so he's making a drunken request. Like it's not. I don't know if I would say she provoked him, as if it was intentional and malicious. I think she's just drawing the line for her own self-worth.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And it's Maggie. It was more than just 7 days. It was 187 days. It was
part of it.
It was six months.
Whoa! I mean,
so yeah. So like after
he was up for 3 months.
Yeah. So half the year,
Whoa.
and then this is the final. This is the kicker, right? This is how it ends. This is on the 7th day.
She never showed up in front of his friends for about 6 weeks, 180 days.
Yeah.
She just completely.
So, and then the people said,
"What's happening here?"
People said, not only did they wrong the king, they wronged us. We're the guests. If I'm throwing a party and I have the entertainment coming and the entertainment doesn't show up, the guests are going to be upset too, not just the hosts of the guests.
Yeah.
Right? So it works both ways.
Shook the whole house.
So then So going back to the original question, there's got to be, hold on, there's got to be a level of figuring out who we are. We have to have a strong foundation.
Control and restraint.
We have to have a strong foundation before anything else.
Right.
Before being able to make a decision, we have to have a strong foundation, because again, anybody can push us over.
Right. Emotionally.
Okay, so let's if somebody can read from 17 to 20.
Yeah, she was emotional, right, Abuna? She got emotional, and the emotion modified her thinking by saying the foundation is.
Well, now, we're gonna see the rest of the reaction from the king's perspective as well. So from verse 17 to 20. If somebody can read first.
For the queen's behavior will become known to all women, so that they will despise their husbands in their eyes when they report. King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought in before him, but she did not come. This very day the noble ladies of Persia and Midian will say to all the king's officials that they have heard of the behavior of the queen. Thus there will be excessive contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, let the royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it will not be altered, that Vashti will come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. When the king's decree, which he will make, is proclaimed throughout all his empire, for it is great. All wives will honor their husbands, both great and small.
Okay. Very interesting. The king is drunk. The people around him are drunk. But he goes to them and he says, what do I do? I told everybody to bring my wife to come, and she didn't come out. What do I do? And they were upset too. And they said, oh my goodness, when people find out that the king asked for his wife to come out and she didn't come, that means she doesn't respect him. That means every wife in the whole world is not going to respect her husband.
Women liberation.
It's like the beginning of feminism, the beginning of all
that's right.
It's the idea of, so they were scared. They were scared.
Getting out of control here.
Yeah, and they want to, and this is the king, right? And he wants to have control. And what's the objective of these guys? What's their goal?
Control.
To please the king, and for the king to have control because they have control. That's, like if the king has control, they're still higher.
He's not all clean himself.
Under the same management.
Husband.
Yeah. Yes. So then they suggest something. And they suggest, and if you notice the wording in this book, like I said, it's
one word.
Hold on. When we say like this book is like a movie.
Yeah.
It's like a story, it's like a movie. It's action packed. There's a lot going on. And you can literally picture how this is happening.
Yeah.
And you can picture the person coming up to this guy Memucan or whatever, coming up to the king in verse 19 and saying, if it pleases the king, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it will not be altered, that Vashti shall come no more before the king Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. Kick her out. If you kick her out,
make an example out of her.
Make an example out of her. Bring somebody else in that will be obedient.
He's crossing God's will here.
But remember, we said the beauty about this book, and it's a very interesting aspect of this book. We said this in the beginning. God's name is not mentioned one time in the book of Esther. Precisely. It's known as the invisible hand of God. Right. So God is working here. God is working, and we're going to go back and we're going to remember this part of the story when we go back and see, why would God allow this to happen? And this question is the number one question we always have. It's the number one question in the world. Why does God allow things to happen? Whether bad things, good things to certain people. In this case, God is involved, and He's planting a seed. We might not see it now, and we'll see it as the story continues. Yeah.
So, is the king, is he Persian?
Yes.
So they practice worship. What is their religion?
They're
pagan religion.
Rastafarian or something.
Yeah, Zoroastrian.
I don't know.
Oh, Zoroastrian.
Yeah, it wasn't. They weren't believers, and it was a pagan religion, meaning they didn't believe in our God. They had their own gods.
Mitra.
Yeah, they had their own gods. So yeah,
The man with the wings.
so they believed in their own thing,
Yeah.
but the king wasn't a religious king. Also,
Is he the one or the one after him that allowed the Jews to go back and?
so we'll get into that
All
next
right.
time. Yeah,
All right.
we don't wanna get ahead of
wanna get
ourselves.
there.
Yeah,
So please excuse me. So Esther is Christian. I mean, she's Jewish.
Jewish.
yeah.
Yeah.
But still, there is no mention.
Yeah, the cool, the another interesting thing is, remember we said the book's name, Esther, and it wasn't written by Esther, right?
Yeah.
It was written by her uncle Mordecai. We'll get to him later.
Yeah.
But another thing is, this whole first chapter, did we hear about Esther? Nothing. So like this is the intro chapter. This is like setting the scene of the movie. Like like you're setting the scene, the stage, and then I feel like in the beginning, at the end of chapter 1, beginning of chapter 2 is when they actually show like the name of the title of the movie, and like now previews are over, intro's over. We're gonna start eating our popcorn. We're ready to go, right?
Where was Shakespeare?
Drinking for 180.
After 180 days later, we're ready to go. So this decree, when these guys tell the king something, they're doing it for whose benefit? Their own benefit and the king's benefit. They want the king to prosper.
Yeah.
They're looking out for the king. In this case, they're looking out for the king because they know for them it's better for this king to have power.
They're loyal to him.
I'll read the last couple of verses of chapter 1. It says, "When the king's decree which he will make is proclaimed throughout all the empire, for it is great, all wives will honor their husbands, both great and small. And the reply pleased the kings and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. Then he sent letters to all the king's provinces, to each province in its own script, and to every people in their own language, that each man should master his own house and speak in the language of his own people." Something really interesting here. The king accepted. The king accepted. What was the decree? What did he do? What was the actual decree? He got rid of his wife.
Something personal.
Instead of protecting her, she got rid of her.
Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
Something personal, and he announced it to everyone.
Exactly. Something personal. It's in his house, right? But nothing he did was personal.
Yeah.
Everything was huge and exuberant. Yeah.
He's asking them to do something he couldn't do.
Exactly. The devil here is, and remember we said this king symbolizes the devil in this story for us, in our lives, and we realize here that sin breaks up lives. Everything. Families, lives. It doesn't matter what it is. It breaks up inside of us. It breaks us up.
Yeah.
We look around in society, forget society. We look around in our church. Sin enters the church and breaks it down and divides the leaders, divides the people, divides the families, divides friends, divides everything. Sin
Groups.
divides. Sin always divides. This was a perfect example of a high leveled person.
Yeah.
And I'm using it in a very, very small sense of the word. This is the king of,
The universe.
At that moment, there was no other king.
Yeah.
Right?
The drunk king.
And he, because of his sin, things broke down. Things broke down. And you'll see now how this decree affects the whole world. The whole world. It affects everybody. And it affects us. And the decree was that he's going to get rid of his wife. Imagine an announcement, a decree. Usually a decree is a rule change. Like we're going to change, there's going to be a new currency in the States. It's going to be a new whatever.
This is the deal.
Here, the decree was, I'm going to just remove my wife. I'm just letting everybody know, I'm removing my wife.
I'm getting divorced.
I'm getting divorced. I'm removing my wife. I'm bringing somebody else in because honor is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Honor between husband and their wife has to respect their husband. So I'm just showing you, and like Jacob said, he's using her as an example for his people, and he also said it in a way. He wanted to make sure everybody got the message in their own language, in their own scripts, like oral language and verbal and written language.
He's judging her, but he's not judging himself.
Of course.
I mean, look at you. You're partying over there with your friend for a couple of weeks. You're not even coming up to see how I'm doing.
Well,
and then you want me to show up on a blink.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not.
That's true.
I've been sitting here waiting for you to get sober, and you're getting drunker and drunker and drunker.
Well, we don't know if she thought about all that.
Well, she's just waiting for him to get sober.
Yeah.
And here also it's not personal declare, it's a political one, because he said she cannot be a queen anymore.
Yes.
She should announce.
Exactly.
No, he shouldn't be a king anymore either.
Exactly. So it removes. It's a political move, but it's also a personal move. Both, and it's a general move.
Yeah.
So like, there's three aspects to it. There's his personal life.
Yeah.
Right.
He's above the law.
He's above the law.
He's not going to be judged.
Yes, but more than that, it's a political, like you said. It shows his power as a king, that he's going to do this. Yes, and an example to everybody else. And at the same time, it's kind of like he wants to teach all his people a message of honor.
Yeah.
You honor the king. I don't care if you're my wife. I don't care if you're a slave, in one of my regions. You honor me. Now we're going to see.
I think he was young.
Well, he's young in this part of the story.
Yeah.
It's his third year. This party started in his third year. So he's trying to establish himself.
He's a strong king.
Yeah.
There is also something I got out of it.
Yeah.
At the end of this big party, it crashes.
Exactly.
There is always that feeling after the big party.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like said,
you cannot. There's nothing positive that comes out of sin.
Like somebody going to Vegas and having a good time, coming back, bad kind.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that.
No. We'll read the absolution later.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is like a right.
I'd like to know what they're on. They're up for all these things.
This sounds really similar to like what goes on now when people are hurt.
Yeah, it's been going on.
To me, it sounds like the king was actually hurt too. Like,
Yeah.
not just ashamed, but he was so hurt, kind of like what we do. Like I lost the job. I didn't even want it to begin with.
He got
He was
emotional.
embarrassed, yeah.
He was so hurt
Yeah.
that he just wrote her off, like, and
Emotional.
He made sure everybody knew, like,
I'm making this general announcement,
yeah,
like,
just to protect.
and it says, and
pain.
you know, that pain, he was furious. It says he was burning up inside of him.
Whoa.
How could I, the king,
Yeah.
be rejected, but not just by anybody,
Yeah.
but my closest person to him?
Yeah.
So, but just, we have to remember, there's nothing positive that can come out of sin.
Yeah.
So sometimes we try to sugarcoat
Everybody
it.
loses.
We try to sugarcoat it. We try to find the silver lining of sin. Oh, you know what? Because I did this,
Yeah.
because I messed up here,
Yeah.
you know what? Maybe that saved me from another man. No.
Yeah.
No.
Can I share something? But it might be way off. It's just bad feelings that.
Sure.
So, he's the king. He could have killed her immediately. But just the fact that he wants her to stay alive and see and be like suffering. Look what you've lost.
By bringing another.
By bringing another one. So that's why I feel like he didn't just kill her.
And you know,
And he wanted to torture her, but
exactly.
he didn't know how to get to her.
Exactly. And this is the biggest way of torturing. You're taking away everything she's owned. You're taking away her royal position. That's what it was said.
Yeah.
Now, we're gonna end here, and we're gonna see how this movie continues. How part 2.
Yeah.
Like what's scene 2,
The
right?
sin.
Scene 2 happens, and then we'll see.
Rules.
We'll see how God uses. Sometimes He uses
The devil.
our decisions
Yeah.
for His glory, and we'll see what
Yeah.
happens next. And glory be to God forever. Amen.
Isn't that how he's always comes last? God's always coming the last. He's always the last one to come in. He doesn't come first.
Exactly.
He loves everybody. Did everybody try
He's not.
everything? Any more ideas over here?